So I'm Sophie. I'm one of the social security and tenancy lawyers here at Canberra Community Law, and we wanted to hold this Q&A today a little bit late about the JobSeeker and the JobKeeper payments. There's been a lot of talk and confusion around the two types of payments and what you might be eligible for, so we thought a bit of a rundown might be useful. So we'll start with the JobKeeper payment. This payment is part of a scheme that is being debated in Parliament right now. So there's a piece of legislation that's going through Parliament. It's pretty much definitely going to be passed, or perhaps it has been passed in the last 26 minutes that we've been trying to make this Facebook Live work. But it's being known as a wage subsidy. And so it's basically a package that goes to an employer, and then the employer disseminates it to the employees. So it's not something that you apply for. It's something that your boss or your former boss, unless you're a sole trader, that they would apply for, and that they would then pass on the wage subsidy, so the payment from the government, to you as an employee. So, one sec. So, what employers can get the JobKeeper payment? So, eligible employers, they're businesses, companies, charities, and sole traders who meet a number of criteria that basically show that they've been affected by the coronavirus and the associated economic downturn. So, if it's a business that turns over less than 1 billion, they need to have lost 30% of their revenue compared to the year before. If it's got a turnover of over that, it needs to have lost at least 50%. And for registered charities, there needs to be a decline in turnover of over 15%. Andrew's just asked whether the JobKeeper is done through the ATO, and that's right. So if you think that you or your boss or your former boss could be eligible for the JobKeeper payment, so that's the one largely for employers but also sole traders, you should go to the ATO website, just search JobKeeper payment, and it will take you to a page where you can sign up and they will send you updates. So after today, the legislation should be passed and it should be clear what the next steps are in terms of implementing this scheme, the government getting that money to the eligible employers, and then the ways in which that you'll pay that wage subsidy onto your employees. So at the moment, who's not eligible are public sector employers, so by definition also any public sector employees, local councils, and state and local government employees. So the examples of that would be maybe people that are employed at the municipal pool. Your employer, that pool, that won't be eligible for the JobKeeper payment, so you by turn shouldn't be hanging out waiting for your employer to get it because they're not going to be able to access this scheme. You need to access the JobSeeker payment probably by yourself, on your own, and we'll go into that in a sec. So what employees can access that? So those are the employer groups who need to go to ATO, register their interest, and then they'll get given the information as the legislation is passed today and the scheme comes into effect. If you're an employee and you think maybe my business, or maybe you were working at a cafe and you think maybe that business owner might be eligible for the scheme, you point them towards this website, and you need to think about, were you employed on the 1st of March this year? So that's a requirement. You have to have been in a job on the 1st of March. You can be a sole trader, you can be full or part-time, that's all fine. The only catch is if you're a casual. At the moment, so this will be all clarified through the legislation today, but it looks like you're going to have to have been employed for over 12 months as of the 1st of March 2020 if you're a casual employee. So the Labor Party has proposed some amendments to that, so have the Greens. It's possible it will get changed and expanded, but it seems unlikely at this point. But definitely keep tuned for updates on that point. But at the moment, we're expecting it to be only available to long-term casual employees. You need to be at least 16 years old. and you need to be an Australian citizen or a holder of a permanent visa, a protected special visa category, a non-protected special category visa if you've been residing in Australia for 10 or more years, or a New Zealander on a special category visa. And as I said before, sole traders are covered. So folks that are working in the gig economy, who are sole traders, you should also head over to the ATO website. So what happens now? So you can talk to your boss or your former boss and encourage them to head over to the ATO website. If you've already been laid off and stood down from your work, but this happened in March, then your employer can actually put you back on the books, and then they'll be able to access this scheme and give you payments via the JobKeeper payment scheme. But if you were laid off before that, it doesn't look like you will be eligible. At the moment, this scheme has been crafted as a 6-month scheme, so it's just for the duration of what's anticipated to be this coronavirus economic downturn period. It's not forever. And in effect, what it is, it's a $1,500 flat rate payment that if your employer chooses to access the scheme, they will have to pass on to the employee. Access the scheme, they will have to pass. Whether you are getting paid more or less than the $1,500, that is a flat rate that will be given to all the people or the employees who are eligible via the JobKeeper scheme that your employer has signed up to. There are a few sort of catches with the scheme that have been talked about over the last few days, and again they'll be debated in the Parliament probably right now, and will come out in the legislation and be clear. But there's a whole bunch of employment law stuff that people should be aware of and thinking about. So, for example, it looks like at the moment the employer might be able to pick and choose which employees it decides to keep on via this wage subsidy. So it might be able to access the JobKeeper scheme but not decide to keep all of its employees on. Maybe it only wants to keep some employees on. So there could be some difficulties like that that come out, and I would encourage you, if you have concerns about what happens as this scheme rolls out, that you contact your legal aid or community legal centre in your area. The other thing is that it looks like employers might be able to compel you to use up your leave as well. So that's a problem in the sense of, through no fault of your own, you may be required to drain your leave while accessing this wage subsidy. So the details of this are being debated, but at the moment the take-home message is for employers and anyone that thinks, any sole traders that think that they might be eligible, head over to the ATO website and sign up now so that you can get those updates and work out whether you are eligible or whether your boss might be, and have a chat to them about that. So that's the JobKeeper payment. The other one that confusingly sounds extremely similar is the JobSeeker payment. So this is the one that I'm assuming the majority of people watching this, if you're individuals, that you might be eligible for. So this payment is delivered via Centrelink, and you go and apply for it like you would any other income support payment. So, like youth allowance, or what used to be known as New Start. So it's a payment that is for people who are unemployed or looking for work, or if you've been sick or injured and can't work for a period of time. And that could be because of the coronavirus or because of any other sickness or injury. You have to be between 22 and 66. There is the equivalent of this sort of payment, but associated with the youth allowance for people under 22. And you need to be an Australian citizen or resident. So this is a payment that changes with your income or your partner's income, so it's income based. The government has removed the assets test by now. The government has removed the assets test for now because of the particular situation, but it used to be governed by that as well. But at the moment, there's an income test. So if you are, say, you're still working a bit, but you've lost some shifts due to the coronavirus economic downturn, you might be eligible. But depending on how much you're still earning through those shifts, that'll impact how much money you get via Centrelink. Same with your partner. So depending on how much money your partner's earning, that will also impact how much money you get through Centrelink. So you'll need to declare those details to Centrelink. So for example, Generally speaking, you can earn up to $104 per fortnight, and that'll have no impact on your JobSeeker payment. You'll get the full amount. If you earn a bit more than that, then you'll have to pay a certain amount per dollar that you earn over the 104, and so on. There's a bunch of tables that are pretty easy to navigate on the Centrelink website, which you can have a look at to try to work out how much you think you will get paid. If you think you might be eligible for this payment, the JobSeeker payment, so that means you're an Australian citizen or resident between 22 and 66, you're unemployed or looking for work, or you're sick or injured, then I strongly recommend that you go to the MyGov website right now and either apply for the JobSeeker payment or register your interest if you can't apply right now because the website keeps crashing. And once you've registered your interest, Centrelink will call you back to help you complete your claim. We've been hearing some mixed reports from clients about how quick this process is working. So some are saying that they get a call back pretty promptly, and others are waiting over a week to get a call back. You will, though, if everything goes to plan, get a call back on a private number. You should get a text if you're on a mobile phone from Services Australia beforehand, letting you know that that call is coming. Do answer it, just because it's so difficult for people to get through to Centrelink at the moment. At the moment, you don't have to supply the normal paperwork that you do to normally register for these payments. So you're not required to produce a separation certificate or a bank certificate right now. So definitely right now, if you can, you think you're eligible, get onto MyGov and register your interest. The reason why I'm saying you should do it right now is because if you apply before the 13th of April and you are approved for the payment, so you are found to be eligible, then you will get the government's $750 economic stimulus payment, which is a one-off payment into your bank account. Unfortunately, if you register your interest after the 13th of April, you won't be eligible. So I think the 13th is next Monday. Yep. So I would recommend applying now, this week, to make sure that if you're eligible, that you do get that payment. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is even if you think you might get the JobKeeper payment, so even if you think your boss has said, they're keen to try to do the JobKeeper scheme and you think that they might keep you on through that scheme, you should still apply for the JobSeeker payment because A, they might not, things change, no guarantees. But also B, the JobKeeper payment, so the one through your employer, the $1,500 flat rate, that will not be back paid. So your boss can choose to keep paying you now, even if you're stood down. But if they don't have the money to do that, and they don't take out a loan from the bank or do anything else, then even once that JobKeeper payment kicks in, the workplace is found to be eligible, they get that scheme, they tell you, yes, we're going to keep you on, and we're going to pay you the JobKeeper payment. You'll only get that payment from that date. So it's not clear what you're meant to do between now and whenever that ends up happening. Whereas if you apply for the JobSeeker payment now, if you're eligible, you can receive that now. Once you get the JobKeeper payment, you come off the JobSeeker payment. But, and this is extremely important, you do not want to be in a situation where you are receiving the JobKeeper $1,500 subsidy and the JobSeeker payment. This is a recipe for you accruing a debt and having to pay Centrelink back. So the way that you avoid that is by keeping Centrelink informed of your income. It's possible to get both at once, but what will happen is your JobKeeper payment pushes you over the threshold to actually receive the JobSeeker payment through the income. So your JobSeeker payment would just be reduced to zero, and that's fine. What's not fine is if Centrelink doesn't know that you're getting another payment. So as with everything, make sure you always declare your income to Centrelink. Particularly if you're going to do this, which I think is wise, which is to apply for the JobSeeker payment now and be getting some income, making sure that you're okay and you're keeping your head above water, and then at a later date, if you get the JobKeeper payment, letting Centrelink know so that you don't receive that JobSeeker payment anymore, and you can carry on, no debts or difficulties. So that's the basic wrap. That's JobKeeper, JobSeeker, what you can expect and what you should be thinking. Canberra Community Law in the comments has just posted the link to a website called canigetcentrelink.com.au, which is basically a flowchart, yes, no interactive tool that will help you work out whether or not you're eligible for a Centrelink payment and which payment that might be. We have a few questions coming through. One person has messaged saying that he is a part-time worker earning less than a certain amount. I'm not sure if that amount is correct, but he's a part-time worker. Mum lost all rostered hours as an early childhood educator, so the family has lost a lot of income. She had been working for 2 years and they have one child. What support might be available to help this family? So it's difficult to say from that, potentially either payment. Remember, JobKeeper payment is something that's up to the workplace. So mum's working for an early childhood educator. The childhood centre may be applying for the JobKeeper scheme. There's also been another announcement recently from the government about early childhood centres. You might have heard it's been promoted as free childcare for all essential workers or people that need to keep their kids in childcare. So for childcare centres that are receiving that package from the government, they may then decide to keep on employees, potentially like this person, with that government money. So that's one possibility. JobKeeper is another possibility. JobSeeker is also a possibility. That's something though that you both would individually apply for via Centrelink, as I described, and depending on your respective incomes, Centrelink would determine how much and whether or not you were eligible. So if you're both Australian citizens or residents, you earn less than the threshold, which are there on those tables, and we'll post that in the link so that you can easily find it. Then you might be eligible for the JobSeeker payment. There's another question here that says, is there any way to force your employer to apply for JobKeeper? No, there isn't. It's a scheme that businesses and employers can opt into, and then again, it looks at the moment, so the legislation hasn't passed, but it looks at the moment that the employer will even be able to decide maybe which employees it wants to keep on and pay that wage subsidy of $1,500, which is why I am encouraging folks to consider applying for the JobSeeker payment, just because there are no guarantees that your workplace or your former workplace is going to apply for the scheme at all, or that they're eligible. You wouldn't necessarily know that. And secondly, if they do, there's no guarantee that they're going to keep you on board. So important to make sure, yes, talk to your boss about it, definitely, but also make sure that you're taking steps to look after yourself. But again, you don't want to be on 2 payments at once. That is a bad move. So always update Centrelink to your income if the situation changes. I think that's... Oh no, there is another question. Okay. So... yeah, there's a question that's come in from a person who is in a partnered relationship. He's only between 60 and 65. I think he or she is only between 60 and 65. The other person is a casual child educator for more than 2 years, but has had to not take shifts for some period of time due to having to assume caring responsibilities. But she hasn't been rostered onto work at all since the stage 2 announcement from the Prime Minister. In such circumstances, what are the options for us to get assistance? Yeah, that's a really good question. So this is something that we should wait and get particular legal advice on, depending on what the final legislation looks like. At the moment, if she's a casual that's been working for more than 2 years, she's still on the books. I haven't heard anything that would suggest that her workplace wouldn't be open to them if they are eligible for the JobKeeper payment to then keep her on via that scheme. But it will be that's not clear. We'll need to see the legislation that comes out and make sure that there are no additional caveats on casuals. Otherwise, if she's out of work or if her shifts have been cut to basically nothing with the rostering, there are two possible payments here that she would be eligible for. One is, it sounds like she's assumed a caring role, so there is a carer's payment. So potentially she would be eligible to receive that payment. But if she's wanting to work and would want that shift work, but just isn't getting it at the moment, then that may put her in the category for the JobSeeker payment. Remember that to be eligible for the JobSeeker payment is an income-based test. It doesn't mean that you have to be entirely unemployed. You can have your shifts cancelled or reduced and be needing more work. And all that means is that when you get some money coming in from some shifts that you do, that'll reduce the amount of JobSeeker payment that you get through Centrelink. So that's potentially an option for her as well. I think that might be all of the questions so far. Some other questions that have been coming up separately are around the disability support pension and the JobSeeker payment. And so just to reiterate with that one, that at the moment does look like a problematic part of this whole arrangement because of the way the supplements work. So there's a coronavirus supplement that's attached to the JobSeeker payment, effectively gives you an extra $550 per fortnight. So it goes from being what was the very low New Start allowance to actually a more generous payment now with this coronavirus supplement. That's not forever. The government has said that that's only in place for a 6-month period. But they have warned that if you're on the DSP, the disability support pension, don't think about getting off it and then hopping onto the JobSeeker payment because you may then lose your eligibility to apply for the DSP again once we get out of this crisis and the payments go back to their normal rates. So that would just be something to bear in mind. That situation doesn't apply to someone who isn't on a payment yet and may want to be on the DSP in the future. In that situation, you may consider applying for the JobSeeker payment now and apply for the DSP later. That's a financial decision for you to make. But at the moment, definitely would exercise caution if you are considering shifting from the disability support pension to another payment. That appears to be a pretty fraught decision to make. So definitely seek advice, read the website. On the Centrelink website, they've got a page which is effectively a warning that says if you do that, you may not be able to get back onto the DSP, and also at some point they're going to reintroduce the mutual obligations, and so you might be required to do things that you're not able to do. So in terms of looking for jobs and fulfilling those requirements, which would then mean that your JobSeeker payment would get cut off because you weren't able to fulfill those mutual obligations. So difficult. We've had a question about the threshold. I will post the link in response to that so that you can see what you're eligible for. Just because we're not meant to give individual legal advice over Facebook Live, but I'll post that in a sec, just as soon as we log off. Just checking that there aren't any more questions from folks about JobSeeker or JobKeeper. Great. Okay, so we are planning to have a few more of these Q&As, this time without the delay in the start time, over the coming days and week. So we'll do another one tonight at 6 p.m. that's on debts and what does it mean if you have a Centrelink debt in this time of coronavirus when people are experiencing lots of financial pressure. And we'll announce more, as they happen. If you need individual legal advice, so if you're in a difficult situation or you don't know what you personally may be eligible for, or something's gone wrong or whatever, and it's got to do with social security or tenancy, and you're based in Canberra, then please contact us, and one of our social security and tenancy solicitors, like me, will be able to give you advice over the phone. Our physical office is closed, but we're still operating, still booking in client appointments. So please call us. The number is 6218-7900. So that's 6218-7900. We'll post that in the comments as well. Or you can email us on info@canberracommunitylaw.org.au. So please like our Facebook page, Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and invite your friends to as well if you think they might benefit from some legal information in this really difficult and stressful time. And if you have any ideas for topics that you want us to cover, please post them and we will do our best to accommodate and to not have Facebook glitches in the future. All right, thanks everybody. See ya.